Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to understanding the strategic shifts in artificial intelligence. Today, we are focusing on a very precise, single snapshot of the global AI landscape, pulling insights exclusively from updates published on November 23, 2025.
It's a fascinating collection of source materials, especially for a Sunday.
Right.
It wasn't really defined by, the usual product launches. It was much more about deep infrastructure plays, geopolitical positioning, and the real-world friction AI is starting to cause.
And when you put all of these intelligence briefings together, a few massive themes just jump right out. What's the executive synthesis for the day?
Well, the first is simple. The capital expenditure, the capex required to maintain leadership at the AI frontier, has reached an absurd new level.
Just the cost of admission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have data confirming a multi-billion-dollar price floor has been set for compute capacity alone. The second theme is the strategic divergence we're seeing. While the West seemed almost obsessed with pure scale and AGI, Asian markets are proving the massive, high-volume commercial success of specialized utility AI.
Get it in people's hands quickly.
Precisely. And the third theme, which is maybe the most alarming, is this dangerous tension between the slow, deliberate pace of global governance and the instantaneous risk of AI-driven security incidents.
That is a critical divergence. The race is split between those who can afford the scale
and those who can achieve the velocity.
Let's unpack this. We'll start with enterprise adoption and commercial velocity, then get into those staggering infrastructure deals, and finish by diving into the governance models and the risks that are forcing this global reckoning. So let's start with a massive indicator of enterprise scaling coming out of India. We've got new survey data showing that 58% of India's global capability centers.
These are the GCCs, right? The big strategic hubs for multinationals.
Exactly. And they're actively committing capital to agentic AI.
And what's really critical here is that this is a move past the pilot phase. The EY survey reports that nearly 2/3 of these GCCs are actively investing in agentic AI.
So systems that can take autonomous action.
Right, not just answer questions. And on top of that, 43% are running generative AI pilot programs.
So why does that specific 58% metric matter so much for someone tracking global deployment?
It signals a very rapid capital-backed transition. It's moving from just exploration to scaled implementation. When a GCC commits capital, they're integrating these systems to autonomously manage high-value workflows. Think finance, HR, R&D.
So India is really leading that push.
They're setting the pace for advanced deployment globally.
Staying in Asia, we see a major research commitment that's aimed at fixing a really foundational problem with large language models.
Yes, Google DeepMind just announced a pretty significant expansion of its Singapore research lab.
And the goal here?
It's explicitly aimed at addressing the severe bias in frontier models. The fact that they're so often trained on predominantly Western data. This expansion is focusing squarely on linguistic and cultural inclusivity for the entire Asia-Pacific region.
And there's a hard number to back that up.
Absolutely. The APAC team has already more than doubled in just the last year. That kind of growth shows a really serious, concrete commitment to closing those critical language and cultural gaps.
So the goal is models that actually understand the local context.
Yes, models that can accurately reflect diverse linguistic environments, especially in Southeast Asia, where current systems, frankly, often fail.
That structural commitment is so necessary. Okay, let's pivot from the research labs to the pace of commercial adoption, where we're seeing Chinese tech giants just dominate the utility space.
Right, let's talk about Ant Group's app, Lingguan.
The low-code, nano-code application.
Exactly. And the market penetration here is just phenomenal. Lingguan, which generates customized software from simple instructions, hit 1 million downloads in just 4 days after launch. That's according to the South China Morning Post.
1 million downloads in 4 days. That's a metric that really demands attention. What does that tell us about the economic strategy in China versus, say, the U.S.?
Well, it confirms this strategic focus on specialized utility and broad accessibility. It's not about the often abstract goal of generalized AGI.
It's about what works right now.
Exactly. This high-volume, domain-specific success suggests that the quickest economic returns come from rapid deployment that just lowers the technical barrier for millions of users. It's democratization through specialization.
Speaking of specialized utility, this is where agentic software is becoming the global battleground. Zoom just released detailed plans for its AI Companion 3.0 update.
And this is a really aggressive move. This is Zoom trying to pivot from just being a communication tool to becoming an intelligence orchestration layer.
And the key feature is agentic retrieval.
Right. The AI can search simultaneously across Zoom Workplace, Microsoft Teams, and Google Workspace. They're building a strategic layer that sits above their competitors.
But the really fascinating part is the next step on their roadmap, this agent-to-agent functionality.
Way 2A, yeah.
What does that actually look like for an enterprise user?
So the roadmap includes this agent-to-agent functionality, starting with an integration for ServiceNow. This is critical because it signals a shift to fully autonomous enterprise workflows.
So it's not just summarizing a meeting.
No, not at all. Before, an AI companion might draft an email for you. With A2A, the Zoom agent autonomously identifies a problem in the meeting, connects with the ServiceNow agent to file the support ticket, and then schedules the follow-up meeting, all without a human touching it.
That is the definition of autonomous workflow.
It is.
We also have a fascinating open source entry that kind of upends the traditional competitive model for physical systems, shall we?
Yeah, the major manufacturer of EVs and robotics, they're open sourcing an AI model specifically for autonomous driving and robotics platforms.
Which seems counterintuitive. Isn't proprietary software usually the key advantage in a field like autonomous driving? Why give it away?
Because it's an extremely shrewd strategy. A proprietary model would limit R&D. But by distributing the model for free, Xiaomi encourages this huge, wide developer pool to optimize the algorithm specifically on Xiaomi's platforms.
On their cars and their robots.
Exactly. It shifts the competitive advantage. If everyone has the software, the real differentiator becomes superior hardware integration, energy efficiency, and your scale of production. Xiaomi is basically saying, we have the best factory. Help us make our hardware better, faster.
If that last segment was all about market velocity, this next one is about pure, unadulterated capital, the physical limits of the AI race. And the numbers here are just staggering.
They truly are. The biggest headline is that OpenAI finalized a $38 billion 7-year agreement with Amazon Web Services.
With AWS.
Yes, to secure just vast amounts of cloud computing resources. Updated reporting on this date confirmed that deal is done.
$38 billion. That's securing access to hundreds of thousands of state-of-the-art NVIDIA GPUs. What does that metric mean for the rest of the ecosystem? Is the frontier AI race now closed off to everyone but 4 or 5 players?
It certainly sets a massive price floor. This deal redefines the baseline capital expenditure required to maintain leadership. For any competitor, this is the new cost of entry to stay at the top tier. It absolutely accelerates the concentration of compute power.
And if money isn't the limiting factor, raw power is. We saw Anthropic commit to securing massive compute, but they reported it using a very specific metric.
They did. Power. Anthropic confirmed plans to use up to 1 gigawatt of compute capacity.
A gigawatt.
1 gigawatt, leveraging next-gen NVIDIA architectures, and reporting it in terms of power, not just chip count, confirms a major structural shift.
Why is power the new headline metric?
Because physical constraints, power delivery, access to the grid, cooling infrastructure are rapidly becoming the primary limit to AI expansion. You can buy all the chips you want, but if the local utility can't supply the energy, your project stalls. Securing gigawatts of power is now as critical as securing silicon.
And finally, in the hardware space, we have Tesla cheesing successive proprietary AI chip generations.
Yes, Elon Musk reportedly stated the company plans to launch a new proprietary AI chip design every single year. AI4 is currently deployed, AI5 is almost done, and AI6 is already under development.
So they're recruiting heavily for this.
Immense chip design talent, yes. This suggests their ambition is much wider than just solving autonomous driving. They're aiming to become a leading AI hardware supplier.
Challenging the established chip makers.
Directly. In the energy-efficient automotive market, and potentially for other data centers, too. It shows they view proprietary silicon as their long-term, self-sufficient, competitive moat.
Let's pivot now to policy and governance. This is where global regulators are trying desperately to catch up to the speed we just talked about.
And in the U.S., the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, updated its core digital identity guidelines.
This is vital, if not very flashy, security work.
It is. The updates focus on defining the technical requirements for secure digital identity proofing and multi-factor authentication, specifically for federal systems.
And what's the specific AI threat they're trying to combat here?
They are proactively trying to secure the foundational trust infrastructure against threats we're already seeing, specifically voice cloning and deepfake identity fraud.
As synthetic media gets better and better.
It becomes indistinguishable from reality, so the identity proofing process has to be hardened at a foundational level.
Meanwhile, AI diplomacy took center stage at the G20, with India's Prime Minister Modi taking the lead.
Yes, Modi formally proposed a global compact on AI. He's demanding international standards for safety by design and explicitly calling for bans on the use of AI in deepfakes, cybercrime, and terrorism.
This really sounds like India positioning itself as the voice of the global south on this issue. Is there a geopolitical angle?
Absolutely. India is trying to institutionalize its role. They are often subtly linking access to critical minerals, which you need for chips, to demands for a more human-centric, equitable governance framework. It's a pushback against a purely tech-driven approach dominated by the West and China.
And we're seeing these different regulatory philosophies emerge everywhere. Japan is taking a very unique path with a sovereign AI evaluation system.
That's right. Japan's Internal Affairs Ministry announced plans to develop a national AI credibility assessment system that uses AI to evaluate other AI.
AI to AI evaluation.
Yes, to verify models against 7 standards, including the absence of misinformation and, crucially, alignment with Japanese culture.
That's a fascinating inclusion. What does verifying against Japanese culture even look like? Is it about avoiding certain biases or something more?
Well, it sets a precedent for sovereign evaluation. It's a geopolitical move. It's about ensuring that foreign-developed AI models don't inadvertently distort domestic social cohesion or political discourse. It's an attempt to make sure AI deployed in Japan adheres to Japanese values.
And you can contrast that with Singapore, which is offering a model that emphasizes regulatory agility.
Right. Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong emphasized that governments need to actively address job concerns while still aggressively pursuing AI innovation. They favor a very flexible, soft law approach.
So things like regulatory sandboxes.
Exactly. Regulatory sandboxes for safe experimentation rather than immediate, rigid laws. It balances risk mitigation with the speed of innovation, offering a clear alternative to, say, the EU AI Act. And it proactively manages the societal impact, like worker displacement, which is essential for public trust.
Our final segment is where we hit the most critical aha moments, the real-world impact and risks that you need to be tracking today. And let's start with the insurance industry, which is quietly screaming about systemic risk.
This is one of the most important signals of the day. Major U.S. insurers, AIG and W.R. Berkley included, are actively petitioning regulators for permission to exclude AI-related liabilities from standard corporate policies.
They're essentially calling generative AI too much of a black box to properly price the risk. Why is this happening now? What does this mean for companies deploying AI?
It confirms the industry views AI not as a localized risk like one machine breaking, but as a systemic, catastrophic risk.
Because everyone is using the same models.
Exactly. If thousands of companies use the same foundational model, and that model has a flaw that leads to libel or financial error, or worse, insurers fear thousands of simultaneous claims. That mass correlation of risk is what could make AI deployments totally uninsurable.
And that fear manifested almost immediately with a high-profile misinformation incident.
Yes, we saw the viral spread of an AI-generated deepfake audio clip targeting a prominent global political figure. This incident just starkly demonstrates that speed mismatch we talked about earlier.
How so?
The speed of the attack, instantaneous generation, and viral spread fundamentally exceeds the speed of any policy response or platform moderation. It proves the barrier to entry for creating highly believable synthetic media is now alarmingly low.
A single person can create a global security incident.
In minutes.
And finally, let's talk about the societal impact that goes much deeper than job displacement or fake news, the changing dynamics of emotional health.
Reports detailed the really remarkable case of Kano, a 32-year-old Japanese woman who held a wedding ceremony with an AI character she created on ChatGPT. She was reportedly using the relationship for emotional substitution after a broken engagement.
This moves the ethical discourse out of the corporate boardroom and into the most fundamental parts of human life.
Absolutely. This confirms that customizable, emotionally resonant AI companionship has matured into a significant social phenomenon. It shifts the entire conversation beyond just utility and job loss into fundamental questions of emotional health and social structure.
Okay, let's wrap up with 2 tools you can use right now and 2 numbers that really defined November 23rd, 2025.
First tool, for anyone worried about AI hallucinations and mathematical rigor, look at the Lean4 Interactive Theorem Prover. It's an open-source programming language being adopted by labs like Google DeepMind and Meta. The tool is essentially a digital proofreader that formally verifies reasoning steps, combating LLM hallucinations, and achieving gold medal level mathematical certainty.
And for building the talent pipeline.
Check out Google's AI Skilling Blueprint for Africa. This initiative provides a structured training program designed for AI learners, implementers, and innovators. It's built to help close that critical AI talent gap across the continent.
And the numbers of the day.
The first standout number is $38 billion. That is the new secured capital expenditure for foundational model development, anchored by that OpenAI deal with AWS. It's the price of admission to the major leagues.
And the second number.
1 gigawatt.
Mm-hmm.
That's the raw power capacity Anthropic committed to securing. It confirms that power consumption, cooling, and utility access is rapidly becoming the primary physical bottleneck in the AI race.
So if we synthesize this entire snapshot,
the central paradox of the day is this massive, capital-intensive concentration of compute power being locked up by a few Western entities,
right,
juxtaposed against the successful, rapid commercial diffusion of specialized, accessible AI applications that are just flourishing throughout Asian markets.
And this raises an important question for you, the listener, to explore. The conflict is no longer just about the best algorithms. It's about who controls the raw physical resources, the power, the chips, the data, and whether our current global governance structures can possibly operate at the speed needed to mitigate the real-time, instantaneous risk of these AI-driven security incidents. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.